Yes, with news on demand at WHAS.com and Facebook. Depend on it.
Dr. Eli Karam's in the studio. Back. Good to see you again, Karam. How's life, buddy?
I'm hanging in there, Terry. It's good to be here.
You see
Friday.
him on TV, Dr. Eli Live. He's on WBKI Monday mornings at 10. He appears here with me every couple of weeks on electric radio, and we talk about issues for couples. You're at the University of Kent School of Social Work and president-elect of the Kentucky Association for Marriage and Family Therapy.
Yep.
Well, it's always a pleasure to have you drop by here. All right, on the show today, we're going to talk about something I mentioned earlier here. If you're 55 years old, a man, you're still sexy, apparently, according to some new research. And also some research out of Texas that discovered that women who have low sexual arousal saw an improvement over 12 weeks when they were put on a placebo. What the heck?
That's an interesting story. This idea that, you're doing something about it. You're putting your sexuality first, so might as well get results. And I think a lot of people, when they start working on something in any part of their relationship or life, there's this motivation to see results. It's like the mental idea of it's important to me, I'm going to work on it. So sometimes a placebo is just enough to kind of get you over the hump.
The brain can overcome certain dysfunction that's going on if you trick yourself into thinking that there's a medicinal remedy.
That's right. It gives you that little oomph to get over the hump to try some new things that maybe you used to do in the past, but you've kind of gotten out of sync with.
Well, sit tight. In 3 minutes, we'll talk about when the romance wanes, sexual activity in the marriage wanes a little bit, and then I want to get to this older guy.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. I definitely want to get to that, too. Coming up next here on 84 WHAS. Eli is here. Dr. Eli, back in the studio. You don't have to hide your heart. His website is elikaram.com, Karam. Marriage and family therapist from U of L's Kent School of Social Work. So, Eli, we were talking a few minutes ago about women getting placebos that help them, I guess, feel more aroused. And so let's talk about relationships that wane. It doesn't matter if you start a relationship like at age 20.
Right.
The two of you are 20 years old, and 6, 7 years down the road, the heat isn't quite the
exactly.
Same. Or if you start when you're 50 years old, it doesn't matter. There is a change, isn't it?
Right. Of course there's a change, and I think one of the preventative information we can give to couples that don't freak out, that sexuality is going to ebb and flow over the course of a long-term relationship, whether you're married or not. So I guess the first thing is sex is pretty important to people. Sometimes it's the most important thing. So you shouldn't feel bad about that, but I think you have to develop a sexual dialogue over time, meaning, Terry, even if you have a good connection with your partner at the beginning, hormones are going to change. We know certain life transitions. In my situation, when a child comes into the picture, not only does relationship satisfaction go down, sexual satisfaction goes down. So
I'm sure your wife appreciates it.
Yeah, I'm sure she does. But the good news is that's normal. So you don't freak out when it happens, and you talk about it. And for most people, even if they have great heat, as you say, in chemistry to start with, that's a protective factor later on. But things are going to change. Drive is going to change. Hormone levels are going to change. So in this idea that we can just have sex spontaneously after all these years, it's great when it happens that way, and it should sometimes, but more than not, it's planning. It is sending texts throughout the day, messages, building the stage, getting the kids a babysitter, building for this emotional connection, which for many women leads to a sexual connection. It's kind of the reverse for men. We think stereotypically men get their intimacy through sex. Women need more than that, especially in these long-term relationships. You've got to have a building block. You've got to connect before you have the sex. And I think this placebo effect with these hormones, it's just bringing the sexuality back to the forefront of a relationship. And it's easy to get when you're focused on your kids. It's easy to get distracted or your career and not prioritize that physical part of the relationship, but it needs to be.
The idea, though, is to let people know that there's nothing wrong with you if you're not as hot as you used to be, or whatever. You're not as hot for someone as you used to be. That's typical human cyclical behavior.
Sure, and people freak out when they say, when they think, they're not in the mood as much. Well, there's probably a good reason for that. And also, just because what you liked early on in your relationship sexually, if you don't have a dialogue with your partner, if you've never really, you just assumed because you clicked there's nothing wrong about talking about, sex or sexuality or your favorite ways to have sex. In couples, it's much like communication every other part of the relationship, Terry. If you're not having that dialogue, you might think your partner likes something for years because you've been doing something in the bedroom, but really they don't like that at all, or they would like to try this or that. But if you're uptight about talking about it, how can that part of the relationship grow when it gets predictably stuck, as it does for most couples?
Well, let's say someone is, I don't want to categorize anyone here, but let's just say they're more limited in their artistic expression in this avenue, okay?
Yeah.
And you don't want to hurt their feelings.
Right.
How do you bring up the subject without immediately getting the shields up?
Right. That's a good question, because it could be a man or a woman. You could become very defensive if you don't have a good way of broaching this with your partner. So I think, in general, dropping hints. Lots of couples find a good book that is written for both the man and the woman to read. They will show their partner things on TV, or again, things in print that they might like, or just be more direct in telling them this. But I think the most important thing is to offer your partner the assurance. You're not doing this because they're deficient or you're unhappy in the relationship. It's you want to grow with the person instead of apart, and part of growing together is in keeping that sexual part of the relationship, the intimate bond, alive. And to do that, you got to be able to talk about it and try new things.
Sometimes, though, I would guess a person could feel or could worry about being mocked if they ask about something, and the other person thinks, well, who are you? I don't know who you are.
Right, yes. And it should do. Humor is good in some situations, but in some situations, depending what you're joking about, especially body parts or sexuality, you can't joke about some of that. But I think it should be done in a way, again, that offers insurance that you're doing this because you care about the person. If you didn't care about them, you wouldn't be bringing it up. If that part of the relationship, the sexual part, wasn't still important to you, you wouldn't be so curious about it. So, I mean, it's a good thing.
As a marriage and family therapist, does it help to have an intermediary? If you want to, you don't have the courage to say this to your partner, but you might do it through a session where you're sitting there talking with
somebody. Great question. And I think some people, as I've told you before, one and two things people fight about are money and sex. So not every problem, but most problems can be traced or have some impact on the intimate part of the relationship. So sometimes people will come to me and they'll be shy, and I think it's my job to kind of normalize for them that this is a normal part of any kind of relationship. It waxes and wanes, and sometimes you need the skills to be able to talk about it. So no shame in coming and talking about it. In fact, I respect those people more that part of the relationship is so important to them that they don't want to just let it die or just fade away. So they come in and get the skills to be able to talk about it.
If you're going to have a dramatic talk with your partner, just as when you're in a therapy session, should you say, whatever we say here, let's don't take it out of here, this room. Let's keep it locked into here and just make it our private little enclave, our little sanctuary.
That's right.
I mean, should you preface your remarks that way so that somebody realizes, this is not... Because you don't want them to rail on about it for several days. Why did you say blah, blah, blah?
That's right. Or
are you allowed to do that as a partner, or do you consider like you're taking the upper hand, like you think you're the boss?
Sure. I mean, I think that is a very private part of a relationship, a sexual part of a relationship, and it's stereotypical. Some women talk to their girlfriends about that, and some men get really uptight when they find that out. That if I'm working on this with you in here, I want the assurance we're not telling anybody else, because guys don't do it in the same way. They brag in a different way, if you know what I mean.
I can assure you, ladies, we don't want our inadequacies talked about elsewhere.
That's right. Yeah. So the safety and the idea that if we're going to work on this, only us and maybe the therapist are going to know about it. That's important.
Dr. Eli Karam is in the studio. He's on Dr. Eli Live. Perhaps you've seen him on TV on Mondays, 10 o'clock on WBKI, and he's also here every couple of weeks. EliKaram.com is his website. Okay, a study came out also that says women now find men sexy up to the age of 55. It used to be the old cliche was like 45, and then you became what they call invisible to younger women. They're like, yeah, get out of the way, Pop.
Right.
Trying to see some hot guy.
I had this couple coming into my office not too long ago, and there was a significant age difference, about 18 years, and the woman said, and he was about 55, and she said, you're just getting more attracted to me every day. And he's like, well, what do you mean? She's like, yeah, you're really growing into your face. But it's this idea that men can be, can age gracefully and be more, dignified, and women, even though this cougar phase is very popular right now, women don't usually get the same courtesy to age gracefully. But I think that's where you see that play out a lot, is these relationships, again, where there's some significant age difference, where men are with younger women, and we kind of classically see that as this beauty for status, social exchange, if you will. But it's more rare when you see it the other way around. Men have some more latitude in that area.
So to wrap this up, though, if you are wanting to have intimate conversation, it's important to communicate to the person you're with who is close to your age that she's still beautiful to you. You're still hot. I mean, that's important, because that communication can be mammoth in your.
You got it, my friend. That never stops being valuable, and it's not just the verbal; it's the nonverbals. It's how you look at your partner. It's a pat on the butt, a squeeze of the hand. It's those nonverbals that go along with the verbal reinforcement, and we all need that, men and women. We need to know that our partners find us attractive.
Eli Karam, website is elikaram.com. It's Karam. Good to see you. See you again in 2 weeks.
Yes, sir.